Hi everyone, it's Melissa, and today I am going to share my thoughts on Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. So this review is going to be spoiler-free for the first majority of this video, but I am going to delve into a couple of things that are mildly to maybe moderately spoiler territory, but I will give you warning before I do that. Never Let Me Go is a very well constructed and very compelling story with an interesting element of dystopia. And I somewhat hesitate to label this a dystopian novel, even though it is, because I think this book would appeal to a lot of people who don't necessarily read a lot of science fiction or genre fiction in general. Now, don't get me wrong, this book is for lovers of dystopian books, but it's also for people who don't necessarily pick up dystopian literature. And the reason I say this is, in my experience of reading dystopian fiction, those books tend to focus on the dystopian society within that book. And of course, they can delve into all manner of different topics and ideas or themes, but there is a distinct focus on the elements that make that world a dystopian world. And I'm going to quickly just use two other very famous dystopian books as examples of what I'm talking about. 1984 by George Orwell and The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. So while both of these books explore a lot of different, themes and ideas, I feel there is a kind of definite focus on the society in which these stories are set. In 1984, there is a definite focus on the surveillance state, on the suppression of information, on the rewriting of history, on propaganda, those sorts of things. And in The Hunger Games, there is a definite focus on the districts of that world and how the government controls those districts and controls the movement of its citizens. And there's the obvious focus of the nightmare that is children fighting to the death for entertainment and to control people through fear. So both of those books have a lot of focus on the dystopian society. But I found Never Let Me Go is quite different from that. This book is really not about the ins and outs of the world, how the dystopian society really works. The dystopia that is society in Never Let Me Go is not really a focus. It's simply a way to talk about other things. In Never Let Me Go, our protagonist is Kathy. When the book starts, she is in her early 30s, and she is remembering and sharing anecdotes from her life. Near the start of the book, she is sharing memories primarily from her time at this boarding school called Hailsham. And from the get-go, even if you didn't know that this book was a dystopian going in, you kind of get the sense, the feeling that something's not right. You're not entirely sure maybe at first what's going on, what the deal is with the school and with society in this book, but there's just this uneasiness and a little bit of mystery as to what's happening. So in the book, Kathy keeps going back to different memories. It has a very conversational writing style. Kathy meanders a lot. She gets sidetracked with another memory before coming back to her main point. But of course, all of those tangents end up being important to the story, and we find out their importance later on. It's quite a slow-paced novel. There's not a lot of action. There's a lot of reminiscing. And even in those memories, what's happening is not necessarily very thrilling. They are very quiet, very understated. So we have these somewhat disconnected memories that Kathy returns to and is sharing. Memories about her childhood, the school, the teachers, her friendships with the other students. And you can start to piece together the importance of these different moments in her life. Now, like any dystopian, you definitely can pull out some themes on the marginalization or like exploitation of different people. But again, that's not really at the forefront of this book. The themes and the moods, I guess, that were at the forefront for me were memory and like the fuzziness of memory, nostalgia. There was this feeling, this like aching feeling throughout the book for me. There was a sense of like the pain of childhood, but also like the longing for childhood and like the longing of like returning to simpler times. So those were the ideas that kind of jumped out at me initially. But after I finished the book, something else gradually washed over me. And I think that this is actually the bigger theme. And here's where I'm going to get into slightly more moderate spoilers. I'm not going to give away any particular plot points, but just based on some of the like themes and stuff I talk about, that might give like a little bit away. So like I said, those feelings of like memory and nostalgia and longing for childhood, those were the things that kind of jumped out to me as I was reading it. But then after I was finished reading it, this other idea is really what started to permeate a little bit after I was able to reflect more on the book. And so the bigger theme, I think, really was acceptance. Not acceptance of like other people, but acceptance of like our fate, acceptance of our mortality, how we accept the very limited life that we have. I've heard a lot of people say that there's a big plot twist in the book. I didn't really see it that way. What's going on with the society is revealed about halfway through the book, but there are really huge hints dropped very early on in this novel and with quite a lot of frequency as well. And really, this book is so much more than a plot twist, or even the fact that it's a dystopian is kind of secondary. The particular dystopia that Ishiguro sets up in this novel is really just a framework to which he laid down these themes of acceptance, of memory, of like the things that we hold on to, the people, the places, the experiences that shape our lives. So those who, like me, are lovers of dystopian fiction, I of course would recommend this, but even if that's not a typical genre you reach for, if you're more into like literary fiction, if you're not really a genre reader, I still would give this a try, especially if any of those themes I mentioned were things that you think you would find interesting. I think this is a book that is much more than a genre. If you have already read this book and would like to have a chat about it in the comments, please leave one. And as always, thanks for watching, and we'll chat soon. Take care. Bye.